It's the happiest time of the year. Or is it? It's the time when families get together for fun, good times, laughter, food. They go miles to be together and visit with each other. But is it always a good time? Are there surprises that they see when they visit grandma and grandpa or aging parents? And the realization that the parents are aging a little bit and that lives have changed. And all of a sudden, the older children who visit find that maybe they need to make some changes, that the Facebook page wasn't exactly reality, that the messages with mom and dad, when mom and dad say, oh, everything's fine, and the kids arrive and say, maybe it's not. We're going to talk about that today with Patti Davis, National Aging in Place Council, Orange County co-chairperson. Patty's an expert in senior housing coach and a transition specialist and helping people determine where's the right place for them to be in their older years and what are some of the transitions that they can make to make their older years a little bit more enjoyable and pleasurable, and how can the older children be involved to make it a pleasant experience for the whole family. So Patti, welcome very much to being with us today.
Thanks, Valerie. I'm happy to be here.
We talk often, Patti, about this time of year, and what happens over the holidays is that the older children and their families come to visit grandma and grandpa, and they think it's going to be a wonderful time, and they get there. Well, maybe our parents got older in the last 12 months, right? So you walk into mom and dad's home, and you see, maybe they got a little older. Maybe things aren't quite as good as they want us to believe they are. But you want to have a good holiday too. So today we're going to talk about some of those things. And I know you'll help us dive into some of the family dynamics and what families can do to still have a great holiday together. So, Patti, when adult children visit aging parents or family members for the first time or for the holidays, what are the very first signs or the changes that they should be paying attention to?
There's a couple of different categories. One is what I'd consider your physical, as far as how are they moving. Normal aging would be they're a bit stiff, maybe a bit slower, but physically, are they walking gingerly? Are they steady on their feet? Also, from a hygiene perspective, have they been taking care of themselves? And then even with just food, is there any spoiled food in the home? Do they have food in the home? So it's just little signs here and there that people might think, okay, well, it's not a big deal. But if you put the signs all together, if cognitively that it's a little bit more than forgetfulness, and then as far as if they're not cleaned up well, or presenting themselves well, if the house has clutter in it, again, if they have a ton of mail sitting on the table. So just look at it all together. Just be aware, just be conscious.
So that's a tough thing, right? Because you
Hmm.
don't want to be don't want to be judgmental. You don't want to be disappointed, right? Because you have these great memories of being at home, and you want to walk in and your home be all of those things that it always was, right? Or what you ever expected it to be.
Hmm.
And you get there and realize, maybe there's some things going on. What are some of the subtle red flags? You've mentioned some medical prescriptions that are maybe outdated, that you see pills
Hmm.
on the cabinet. Are
Hmm.
those things also that people would see or might watch for?
Absolutely. Or that you find full bottles that they're not taking them,
Oh,
or the bottles are just randomly placed around the house.
oh,
So medication management is huge. We had to go through that with my mom, that she was on, I think, 15 different
oh
medications, which
gosh.
was ridiculous. But
Yeah,
again, it's like you look at one bottle and it might be a few pills missing, and you have to count them when they're not around.
right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely medication management. The big one though is like physical. If they're not taking showers, if they're wearing stained clothing, where they used to have their hair beautifully done, or men that they're shaved all the time, all of a sudden their appearance has changed. And cognitively, that's what older adults want to hide also, is they don't want you to see that maybe they can't remember as much, that they're being forgetful, they're missing appointments. So they try and hide it in the short times that they might see you or in talking, that they'll hide it. But when you get there in a visit, it becomes more prominent.
Yeah, and those are tough things. It's hard to see the reality, isn't it? That you have to recognize that those things are going on in your parents' home because you want them to be perfect. And I know in my mom's house, Patty, one of the things that I see is that so she likes to cook. She likes to be in her kitchen, even as at her age. But I'll go in the drawers, the silverware drawers, and see that she puts silverware away that's not clean.
Mm,
So to me, I see that she used it, but she can't see well enough to see that it's
mm.
clean before she puts it away.
Oh, good
And
point.
so that's always sad. I always check the glasses and the silverware to see how clean they are. That's tough. So what? But some of that comes with normal aging. Some of it is an advanced stage of maybe memory loss or something. So, what are some of the signs that people can use to see if it's just normal aging, or if it is something that's maybe a deeper issue?
Well, I think it's more that if there is a concern, for adult children, just to use that visit as observation. Don't sit there and
Oh,
say, Mom, don't you remember? Don't call them on it. Don't be judgmental.
oh,
Just
good idea.
watch, just watch, learn, and listen. Try and ask them questions for open endedness. Mom, I noticed that the stairs might be harder for you. How does it feel to you? So
Oh.
you're not being aggressive towards them, because the last thing you and I know is that, seniors, they do not want to lose their independence.
And they don't want their children to tell them what to do. And they don't want their children to tell them that they have weaknesses, right? Or that they
Right.
have things that they need help for, at least until they're ready to ask for help, right? Isn't that what you find?
Yes, and even I have a good friend, and so she asked me, she's in a wheelchair, and she said, Well, I just need help with some meal prep, and maybe doing some light housekeeping, during the week when the cleaner doesn't come for 2 weeks. And so she said, But I don't want to be dependent on anybody. And I said, Well, you're not losing your independence, you're gaining it because you're taking those tasks that you don't want to perform or maybe are more difficult, you're letting somebody else handle that for you so that you can do more things that you enjoy. So she actually she did contact a company I gave her, and she had in-home care, and so it really took the burden off of her. But I know with other people that I've talked to, they feel they lose their independence because if they let a stranger into their house, that's doing things. So it's hard to give up that independence.
And it's hard for us as their children also. We
Hmm.
talked about this in a gathering where we were recently. If someone else is in their home, how do you know who you can trust, right?
Hmm.
And how do you know, do you need to install cameras then because you're putting someone else in your mom's house? And what if they sneak behind your mom and go into a room and take something, right? So there's a lot of issues with having someone else in their home. But often the family member will find when it's the right time, right? They'll acknowledge they need some help, but usually their initial reaction is we're fine, right? We're fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good. So what kind of physical things? You mentioned physical changes and physical no, things that we notice, mobility issues. What are some of those things that families notice that should prompt a follow-up conversation?
Well, just even from this home safety standpoint, we know that once a parent falls, there's significant chance they're going to fall again within 6 months. With the parent, as far as being able to walk around the house freely, so take up rugs,
Right.
make sure that there's no clutter there. So when you're with a parent from a physical standpoint, just kind of look and see, do they have any bruises? Are they exhibiting any kind of unsteadiness as far as maybe they need to strengthen up their legs or their core or something? But just look at physically how they're doing, how they're walking.
And another thing I've heard, Patty, is electric cords. Make sure that electric cords are out of the way. So there's no chance they can trip, especially at Christmas, right? The famous rugs. I'm a big rug person. So it's very hard for me to take rugs away. It's very difficult. My mom has a couple of rugs, but they're the kind that stick to the surface of the floor pretty well. But what about stairs? What can people do if their older parents are having trouble navigating entryways or stairs? Is there anything that can be done?
Well, that's a tough one because I have a friend, she's 90, and her husband's 90, so his health is declining. And so what we've done is she has a walker downstairs, she has a walker upstairs, and then he's got a cane if he needs it too. But it's really difficult because you need to make sure that you have railings on both sides that they can hold on to. But when he comes down the stairs, she's got to put a strap on him, and
Oh,
to hold him to make sure he doesn't fall. But it's hard. Stairs are hard. It's like the parents say, "Oh, I'm okay," and then they're walking gingerly up the stairs. But I'm more concerned that, they'll fall because they maybe aren't judging the width of the stairs or something. So stairs are tough for older people. They're tough for me.
this morning, just before our show, I saw a post. I've never seen this before. Maybe you have, Patty, because you're online with me a lot. Also, it was something like, imagine it's kind of like, you think you're putting your wheelchair, for example, into a lift, for example,
Hmm.
but in this case, the lift then became stairs. So rather than if there was a big step up to an entryway, for example, and they
Hmm.
couldn't navigate that, you went into this lift type of contraption, and it became little tiny stairs.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I'll show it to you afterwards.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
never
thought,
heard
what a
of
great
that.
I was thinking what a good thing that would be, because sometimes there might be only one step and it's just too high.
Hmm.
Just too much for someone like my mom's not very tall, so she can't go. I can't go big steps. So that one was very interesting. He stepped into it, and then it became multiple steps, which made it easier to navigate. It was very, very interesting. And also, one thing we could talk about that we've discovered is there's ramps, right?
Hmm.
Ramps that make it easy to navigate into the front door, but also ramps that you can get into the shower. So if you've got a shower that's not a floor level,
Right.
you can get a little ramp that can get you into the shower. It makes it easy. Patty, you're a member of the National Aging in Place
Hmm.
Council. In fact, you're the co-chair of the National Aging in Place Council of Orange County. Congratulations. That's a big, big responsibility, big position. And I know you're growing it this year. Let's talk about the 5 key features of the National Aging in Place Council and how can those apply to older adults on the holidays.
That's one of my favorite topics.
Well,
So,
great. I'm glad we brought it up.
so the five pillars basically are, it's how different professionals can serve seniors and what seniors need. And so there's housing. So are they in the right house? If it's 5,000 square feet, 2 or 3 stories, do they really need that? But one of the biggest things is, can they safely live there? Or where is their best place that they're thriving? People say they want to age in place. People take it that that's the home they're in now. They have to age in place there. But that's not necessarily the case. It could be that they downsize to a smaller footprint. They don't have to have worry about anything. Maybe it's
Correct.
moving into independent living because then they might have housekeeping. They have their meals that they could have in the community. Maybe it's assisted living or memory care, or there's residential care. There's so many options for housing. So that's one. Where can they live that best fits their needs? Then there's finance, because finance is a huge key component. People think that Medicare pays for assisted living, it pays for, in-home care as far as just the companion care, and it's a rude awakening to people. It could
Very
cost
rude.
$300,000 a year to try and remain at home. And so where are you going to get that money? Do you have long-term care insurance? So the finance end of it is a huge deal, and there's a crisis happening right now that people are being taken unawares that they never thought about it, so they're not financially prepared. Then there is health and wellness, that, are they seeing doctors? Are they trying to strengthen themselves to age in place? What does that look like? Are there trainers that work with seniors because they know where their vulnerabilities are. So, health and well being is very important if you're going to try and age in place. Then there's social. As far as you and I know, that people, they think that aging in place is a great thing, but the only person they see is their caretaker. And so there's no social interaction. And so there's a lot of now connectivity with different you know, companies that are coming out. Maybe you want to learn knitting or you want to cook Italian. So there's, groups for seniors to watch somebody in Italy cooking, but then you've got this group. So there's different technology that's starting to happen, but being social or having that connection is huge because it could, cause depression. It could cause, as far as towards if you have dementia, then it could make it worse. And then there is transportation. So that's a big thing too, because they might not be able to drive anymore. And so what do they do? And a lot of aging parents, my grandson's aunt, she doesn't want to call Uber. And so he works and goes to school. So how do they get around? How do they get to the doctor? Is there a mobile doctor? Are they living near medical, you know, facilities? So with those five things, it encompasses everything that a senior needs to be able to live well. So,
Those are great topics and they're great points. It certainly kind of encompasses everything, doesn't
hmm
it? And
hmm
we should talk about some of those a little bit deeper. For example, let's talk about transportation. So you think when I think about senior transportation, I think about the bus that comes around, the city bus, right?
hmm
Not the city bus for older people. And if you're in a wheelchair, that's good, right? Because it can
hmm
put you in a wheelchair and lift you up in the back, park you in the wheelchair,
hmm
and or you can walk up into the bus, right? But then there are people like my mom, like other people we know, who maybe they can't step up into the bus, right?
hmm
Those steps are just too big for
hmm
them to navigate. So an Uber service would be fine. But then we wonder, but the typical Uber driver really doesn't want to go and take the time to be patient with an older person and help them get in and
hmm
put their walker in the back. So aren't there some services like like Lyft or some of the other services that are now more specialized drivers for seniors? Can you
Yep.
tell us about that?
Well, they did start that because they noticed what was happening, and so they do have it is a special service that they offer for adults. There's also, I think it's called Go Go Grandparent, and so
I
it's
think
kind of like a Lyft, and they started before Lyft and Uber, specializing as far as a division in senior because they train them for that. It's like knowing that they need, if they say they're going to be there, they need to be there. That there might be, physical issues or maybe cognitive, that the parents or the kids, nobody can help them, but they know cognitively they need to be watched out for. So there is a little bit of different training to be able to take them places.
And I think some people, at least the older people, think, "Oh well, there's a bus that will take me to the doctor." Well, sure, it takes you to the doctor's office building, right? Parks at the curb. You get yourself out, and then you get yourself in the doctor's office and
hmm
upstairs to your appointment. And then when you're done, you come back out. That's not exactly a trip to the doctor, as you and I both know. Taking your mom to the doctor means the whole thing, right?
It's a very
So
big thing.
yep, yep. So they need someone who, like you said, who's specially trained to put their walker in the trunk and all of those things. So yeah, I also found the lift, and I want to say it's Silver Lift or Lift Silver or something like that.
It's not, it's pretty new, and you would think that I would know the name of it and stuff. I'll have to look into the name,
I
but yeah.
just saw it. I just saw it before I went to the Wichita conference. Was when it had just come out. I got an announcement on my email, so we'll have to look at that. And then socialization. I know that. So there's a product that you and I are aware of, and we bring it up often because it's the one we know. We think they do a great job, and it's called Joy.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
And I'm losing the name of it now. I'm having my own memory failures this morning. And it's a program where you can attach it to your home camera, and then we as adult children can check in on our parents.
And that's
Right,
Joy TV, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. It is. And so that's another way that people can, when they're there with their parents on the holidays, they can say, gosh, I need to find out what's going on, I need to be more in tune with this, right?
Hmm.
But what happens in the times when your parents say, well, I don't want you watching me all the time, I don't need you invading my house? Well, with a system like that, I know they can just, the parents can just turn it off, right? So you can't look at them if they don't want you to.
Yep. Yep.
So
And
there
then
are programs, yeah, where the kids can have access without being able to invade their privacy.
kind of like just checking in on them.
Kind of like, yeah, kind of like that. And there are more of those being created all the time because as technology and age tech changes
Hmm.
things. Let's talk a minute about age tech,
Hmm.
because that's been a big tool for adult children, is the things that now we can do with technology. Um, so for our viewers and listeners, what is age tech? What does that mean to the common family, the everyday, not common, but the everyday family? How could they use age tech?
Oh gosh, there's so many ways. It's, even AARP, I think they're part of Age Tech. They're a funding source for them. And it's just because of 12,000 people a day are turning 65. We know the statistics. And so there's so much technology that's being developed that can help the parents themselves and their daily living. It could help the caretakers. It could help, long distance as far as the kids. So there's just so many different new products that are out there. And even just the 5 pillars we just went over, except for technology, or not technology, transportation, but that's what people are using to help. It's different sensors in the house, so they're tracking the patterns, even tracking activities, and the kids could get notified. What we saw was Joy, the Joy phone, when you can say 10 o'clock every morning, and you get a phone call from Joy,
Yeah.
and she talks to your parent, and then sends the transcript back to you so that you are aware of the conversation and if there's any needs. So, and it's also helping with socialization for the adult, because they get to talk to Joy. And that was pretty incredible.
So, and that's something like $39 a month. So if I'm an adult child and I live out of state, but I want my mom and dad to have some socialization, let's
Hmm.
call it, we
Hmm.
could, for $39 a month, we can hook them up to Joy. They can watch a garden club in Paris, right? Or a cooking show in Italy. And they can even watch a walking tour in downtown Amsterdam or in New York City.
Hmm.
And then we also have the ability to check in on them on a daily basis. And so that's a pretty cool thing. If you feel you can't afford a caregiver and maybe they don't even need one, but you just want to know if they're okay,
Yeah.
that's a great option, right?
Yep.
And of course, I totally just missed what I was going to say. We were talking about. Um, so let's talk about some. So you go into your parents' home for the holidays, and you think they just need some help. So of course the thing, but you're saying, well, we really don't have a lot of money. We really can't afford to do a
Hmm.
lot. I'd really like my mom and dad to feel safer in their home. So what kind of things in a house can they do that would help keep them safer and give you a feeling of comfort that you've done something to help their internal environment, so to speak?
One of the biggest things, and we've helped some friends have it. I wish my mom would have had it when she was alive, but it's called Ring, and it can help them as far as they don't have to get up and answer the door or deliveries. They can talk to the person, and plus, it's a safety factor too. But they could have a ring outside, so that helps with safety. And just again, if they have any kind of physical limitations or difficulties, that helps. And then just lighting is really huge because as we get older, our sense of depth gets, more limited. And so just the lighting around the house. And so they have lighting now that can actually change throughout the day so that when you need stronger lighting, then it's there. So it's automatic. It just changes with the way the day goes. There's grab bars. People think that grab bars are just ugly and it dates a home, but they have such luxury, different things anymore. It just everybody's really starting to invest in the aging population, and so things are getting nicer, and it's not an embarrassment for people to have in their homes.
And the grab bars, you and I talked about this. Someone introduced us to some that you can have your sports team name on your grab bars. You can have pink ones, and some of them also have lighting with them, right? So you use grab
Mhm.
bars have always been what you'd use in your bathroom. Like when I go to a hotel, I tell 'em, "You don't have to put me in a room just because you see my birth date. It doesn't mean you have to put me in a room where I have grab bars. I don't need those, right?" But but now you can have them for hallways and
Yep.
kitchens, right?
Hmm.
And so and maybe by the doorways,
Hmm.
so when you come in or out, and they're so pretty, they're so attractive, and like you said, all these different ways that they're designing them, that they're actually a design feature
Hmm.
rather than, something ugly that you have to stick on the bathroom wall.
Yes, which you don't want to do anyways. That you should
Yeah.
install them properly. So when you do it, install it properly. Don't use the kind that say it's, you just have to, like you said, stick on the wall, or there's
Yeah,
like a
like a
mechanism
suction
that you
cup
tighten
kind.
up.
Yeah, like a suction cup thing, like right, yeah, yeah, we don't want one of those. But I guess if you're really a sports enthusiast, you could have your sports theme grab bars, and
That's pretty
that's
funny.
after all, yeah, why not? Why not? Um, okay, so what else in the house? I've heard a term called task lighting.
Mhm.
What is task lighting, Patty?
Well, I think it goes to kind of what I said. So there's different what lumens that they need as far as for different things, and so for any kind of tasks, you'd want brighter lights. And so you can have so it the task lighting. I know that it changes kind of automatically throughout the day. I'm sure that what you're referring to probably might be even that it's the type of lighting that it is. If you're say you're knitting and you're always in one location, you can have specific lighting for that. Were you referring to something different?
No, but also in kitchens, for
Yes,
example,
yes,
right?
yes. That's
We
huge.
our friend Eve Hill is really good at keeping on top of those things, and she's mentioned that you can put strips underneath your kitchen cabinets so the
Hmm.
counters are better lit and things like that. So you don't
And
have to.
also on the baseboard too. I have friends when
Oh,
now they're getting up at night, lighting is an issue. And so a night light might not be enough. And so they have baseboard lighting. So when they
okay,
get up, it's motion censored. And so then that helps them get into the restroom or wherever they have to go at night.
great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. And if they have to go downstairs or
Yep.
they're near a stairway, because you don't want them to fall down the
Yep.
stairway. Patty, do you see anybody talk about elevators, putting an elevator into the home?
We have a good friend that lived down the street because we live in a tall house down at the beach. And so they moved because they needed an elevator because his wife, ended up having to go into a wheelchair. What was interesting is all the new homes here in Huntington Beach, if it's multi-story, they have elevators. It's just they're putting them in the homes now. But just to have an elevator, it's great to be able to put it in, but you have to have the infrastructure in the house. So can you take out the closet, and can you go up into the second floor or the third floor? But an elevator is a great idea, even from a resale perspective. I think it
Yeah,
would be a great idea.
yeah. I saw one where there's a foyer in the home, for example,
Mhm.
and a slightly curved stairway. So they put the elevator up against that curved stairway up to the second floor so that they could enter on the first floor, take it up, and then they were able to break into the stairway up the stair railing on the second floor because it was that big open area in the entry. So that's a good thing that you can do too. So if the kids come for the holidays
Mhm.
and they say, this is overwhelming. We're only here for a week. We've got to go back to Minnesota. We're going back to Georgia, wherever they go. What are we going to do? What should they do? Where should they start? One reaction is, okay, we'll just put them in assisted living. But for many families, if not most families, that's not a financial option, nor is it an option of something they can do in the week that they're here. So where's a good place for them to start?
Well, they can always call one of us for a
They could.
senior home coach, and we can work with them and the senior to find out exactly what they need. Are they in the right place? Can they get the help with the finances that they have? A lot of senior centers too, they have care managers. And so they can reach out to a care manager. They could have a social worker come over, and understand as far as here is how they're living, functioning, and then determine what kind of needs that they have. Is it a caretaker to come in, for an in-home care companion for maybe a couple hours a week, setting up their medications, preparing a few meals. Just there's small steps that you can take to make sure that your parent is safe. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but money is a huge issue for people. Maybe the parents they weren't able to plan for the future, and they're living social security to social security check. So then it's going to really depend on the adult child. And hopefully they have the money, and if not, that's one of the big things right now is where do you get the money to make the changes you need to make or get the help you need?
Good question. That's a very, very, very good question. And we know, along with the theme of aging in place, we know that most people don't want to sell their homes,
No.
but not everybody lives in a single story home. And even those that do, my mom's in a single story home, but her bathroom and shower arrangement is poor at best for what she needs. She really can't get a walker in there and navigate. We're just lucky that she doesn't fall when she gets in the shower. So people need some help. So if they want a caregiver, are there companies that will work just for a few days a week or a few mornings, or do they have to commit to a full 40 hours a week? How does that work?
Oh no, I think everybody has their own specialty, but there's so many companies entering into the industry, but they might do just respite, care, or, just to give that caretaker a break a couple of hours a week. I think the minimum usually is 4 hours, just from a scheduling perspective.
Mhm.
And it's usually between 30 and $50 an hour. And in-home care, companion care is not covered by insurance, if I remember
Mhm.
right.
Right.
Only if it's, home care, which is then because you have the nurses and you have other professional services, then Medicare does kick in, but might not cover it all. But there are the little, like with my mom, she couldn't afford, when I found out she was sick, she couldn't afford, much of the extra. So we got her in home care because she lived 3 hours away. And, they came a couple of times a week for like 3 hours, I think. But even then, it just adds up. It can be a lot of money.
Yes, it does. It does. And if that's why, if someone can't afford someone to come in all the time, at least to have something like the Joy program where
Yes,
you can at least
absolutely.
check in on them on their camera, on the
Hmm.
phone, or on their television rather. That's a little bit easier. So let's say you've got siblings. A few of us do. And one of them may say, everything's fine, no problem at all. And the other one says, oh no, we've got to do something. And the other one say, well, that may be, but we don't have any money. So how do siblings communicate in situations like this?
That's a tough one. I think that should
Any
be
suggestions, Patty, to the lifelong question of how do siblings get along?
that's like the magic ball there. If somebody could figure out that one. I have four brothers, and only one lives out of state. So when my mom got sick, it was me. And I went down to Hemet all the time, sometimes every day. And, my brother's, oh, I'm too busy, I'm this, or then they think it's the woman that has to handle the situation.
Yeah, I know.
And even from the finances perspective, it's my mom needed, you know, um, cancer pills, but the donut hole basically from medication from Medicare was $500 that she had to come up with every month. So the siblings don't necessarily agree on everything. And it's really, most times, it ends up that it's just one person. And then you've got caregiver burnout. And, it's, I don't even, the only thing you can do is just sit down. Sometimes people get like a mediator and talk through as
Uh-huh.
far as who, here's the things that need to happen with mom. Can you take different responsibilities so each one is invested, as far as in the caretaking? But then you have to still come to an agreement. It's a tough one. It's I wish I had a
It is
magic
tough.
answer.
It is tough. We recently interviewed a gentleman who wrote a book called Pledge Talk, and he has 5 steps with the acronym Pledge of things that families can do to try to work together better. And it's tough. It's tough. We have a mutual friend, Scott, in Arizona, whose mom just passed away, and he has 4 brothers. And during the mom's life, everybody took different responsibilities, and some took none at all. But now, well, if you're talking about selling the house, right, then don't leave me out. So it's a very, very, very tough thing. And it's tough for people to agree. And then what do you do, Patty, in the situation where the parents say, I'm fine. I don't need anything.
Well, I mean, as you and I know, a lot of times that is what the parent's going to say. They don't want the kids involved because then they're going to start losing their independence. Independence is such a huge deal, which I get it. I don't want to lose my independence. And so they're going to do that. And I think that's where visits to the parent are important, so that they can be observant of seeing what they might need. And then, if possible, open up that discussion with the parent, because you don't want to make decisions and not have them part of that conversation,
Yeah.
which we know that kids do that. And, then the parent's really resistant. And there might be more subtle ways that you can go about getting to the same conclusion that they need help.
It's interesting that we talk about this. We have a friend who talks about the fact that just because someone turns a certain age doesn't mean they become stupid or dumb, right? They still have the right. They're still a human. They still have the right to voice their opinions. They still have the right to say what they want, and they should be respected,
Hmm.
right? They shouldn't be bossed around just because they all of a sudden turn 65 or 75 or 85. And so someone says, now you're old. And so you're old, so therefore you need me to take charge. And certainly that's not always the case. So it's a fine line, isn't it?
Well,
Deciding.
it is, and it's just society in general. I was at this event at a assisted living a couple of weeks ago. And so they have this event, that they have for all the seniors, well, everybody living in the community, but then they can invite their family. So I was sitting at a table, and this singer that they brought in was phenomenal. And so I had turned to this lady at the table and I said, oh my gosh, he's so good. And she said, I know they brought him in for my birthday when I turned 100. And I go, oh my gosh, congratulations. And she goes, honey, that was 2 years ago. So, you would, people are so active so much later in life, or just they live a lot longer. But then I also know somebody that's 67 and you'd think that she was 100. People age differently at different stages of their life. And you're right. It's just by looking at us, you can't sit there and say, ah, she's old, and then kind of go on to the next person that might accomplish what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's difficult. So, what are some of the ways you can have a discussion? How can you start a conversation with your parents just about the topic in general, even if everything seems fine, but they're getting older and you're far away and you want to be involved with them? How do you bring up the topic like, hey, mom and dad, we saw your birthday was a little bit getting up there this year. How's everything? Right? Is that what you do? Do you,
Never do it by age, just like what we talked about.
oh,
Nothing is by age. It's a kind of going back to that, observance. Is mom and dad, are they really struggling to get up the stairs? You go over and you see a pile of bills. It's like, hey, mom or dad, can we help you with the bills? Can we set up a system? So you look for vulnerabilities of what's happening and you try and address those specifically, but do it in such a way that you're using I statements, you're making that observation and get their input by opening, an open-ended question. But don't, definitely don't dictate, don't sit there and call them on it, but just open it up to a conversation.
and generally speaking, we hope that the parents will respond and they'll want to share. And if not, you just have to wait, right?
Yeah, you can't force them. I mean, even my grandson lives with his great aunt and has become a caretaker, and she won't listen to anything, and it's you can't forcibly get him out of the house. And she needs help, and he's running himself ragged trying to make sure she has everything she needs. But it's you can't force anybody to do anything. You just try to gently get them to see your side.
If someone wanted to investigate assisted living communities, is that easy for them to do?
Oh, sure. I mean, you can call for a tour, but I have a friend that she is trying to plan down the road. She goes, Patty, you've talked about assisted living. I have this vision in my head of what it's like. Her husband doesn't want her to go to assisted living. She said, but I need to find this balance of what's right for me and what's right for him. And I said, well, then let's set up some lunches and let's go have lunch, and so she's open to do that. What I think people need to understand too is they can go to a placement professional who will know about all the different kinds of communities. But one of the key things in my experience in visiting all the communities is they need to really look at the community, the vibrancy of it, because some communities are they take more difficult type of physical or cognitive issues, and so the vibrancy or the kind of the atmosphere of the community is different. So wherever stage of life that that person's in, make sure it's a right fit for the assisted living that they go to visit.
Okay, so they actually can go visit these communities and
Mhm.
and even give them lunch?
Yeah, they'll give them lunch, they give them tours, they get to see, they can even talk to other people that are there. And they're very everything's very transparent as far as they want you to come and see their community and they want you to get a feel for it. You can even go and stay there for like a month, and kind of check it out, see if it's something that you'd want to do.
Well, that's great. That's great. And it's hard to do if the family's here just for a week, but if they then find someone, like you said, like a placement agent,
Yep.
right? There's some excellent ones, and we
Hmm.
can always refer them to those also.
Absolutely.
What patterns in someone's life might suggest memory loss? How do you really determine that? Because we all lose our keys. This week, a couple times, I've forgotten somebody's name. Last night, I was trying to remember Alexis, and I couldn't. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm getting dementia. So, what really? We all do that. So, what really can are some of the signs that they can see if their aging parents are really developing a memory loss issue?
Well, memory for sure, and like you said, it's like, I call it tip of the tongue. It's like the word the is sitting there, but I can't draw it forward. And there's going to be times like that in life, obviously. And as we get older, we have a lot more information stored. So, it takes a while to get it out.
It
But as
does.
far as cognitive, it's not just the few words they're missing, or it's really looking at, are they missing appointments? Are they,
Mhm.
are they a lot slower to communicate? Do they look confused, or are they confused? Are they stopping things that they used to love to do because of cognitive issues? But they don't want to tell you. They just go,
No.
I don't want to hang out with them anymore. I don't want to go to the senior, center, activities, because they start withdrawing. So you look at, are they still being engaged? How are they in talking to them? So when it's just subtle signs, the tip of the tongue, that's okay. But when it's deeper issues and things are being missed, medications not being taken, we talked about bills kind of stacking up, they forget to pay the bills. Those are the deeper cognitive issues.
And isn't it also sometimes we interviewed a gentleman whose mom, how they kind of figured out that she had dementia and then Alzheimer's was that she was lost. She
Hmm.
went to a baseball game, couldn't find her way back, had no idea where she was. Or I have a family member who has trouble with directions anyway,
Hmm.
but she'll be in the wrong place, has no idea where she is. And those kind of trigger that same situation,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, I had a friend that she got it early, but she was a jogger and she was 50. And so she was out jogging and then kind of stood there and she didn't know where she was. And so you're right. It's like it could be scary because it could, maybe cognitively they've been fine, but then if it hits and if they're in a store, they don't know where they are. It's concerning.
Yes, it is. Well, actually, I have that when I can't find my car in the parking lot. Right? Yes, last week we went. Yes, we decided we need to take a picture when I leave my car to see where I've been. But that's okay. Then at least I'm remembering to do that. So maybe that's a good sign. So if families suspect they have some issues, what things can they do over the holidays to have a nice, pleasant family gathering and be very loving and have a great time and then just keep all those things kind of an observation, so to
Hmm.
speak, to then talk about later.
Well, I think one of the things I read it, it says, in fact, I wrote it down. It says, instead of when you go to visit, when you notice things are starting to maybe not make sense or are of concern, it turns from a visit to an observation of love.
Oh, that's a
And
nice
so
term. That's a nice
then
term.
you start to literally write down, or maybe use your phone and make phone notes or whatever, but just start to document what you're seeing so that when after the visit's over, you can get together with the siblings. But definitely don't address, unless it's a safety hazard, don't take that time away from the visit to, confront the parents. Just start to observe. That's all you're starting to do. And you do everything out of any questions you ask, you do it out of curiosity, or with a loving heart. Nothing, again, no judgment, no trying to, make them change that habit right then. It's just everything you're doing is just observing, and then you talk about it and see what kind of help, suggestions that you could give your parent.
Yeah, if anything's needed at all.
Hmm.
But then I've heard someone talk about this topic also with their family and how they had certain tasks or projects for the family members, whether it's a grandma or an aunt or a parent or whatever, mom or dad who came, that's things that they love to do with their hands.
Hmm.
Whether it's puzzles or crocheting or making something, little wood projects for the grandpa and things that they had planned for them. So when they were all together, everybody had something to do to keep them busy. And I thought that was a really great idea also.
That is a great idea.
And if one of them likes to wrap presents or do the bows, then they had that project for them, which I thought was a great idea. And what do you do, Patty? All parents aren't old just because their age. We've talked about this. It's about your stage, not your age.
Yep.
So what do you do with a 100-year-old person who still likes to do things? We don't need to call them old, and they don't need to go to assisted living. And the kids go, but there must be something wrong. They're old, right?
That's true. And it's society that has to change. It's if the parent is doing fine, like your mom, you know, she's doing for the most part fine, at home, and you you can't change it. And the adult kids, sometimes it's like, well, I'm not there all the time, so what about if something happens? What about? And so you can't worry about that. You can put in any kind of protections that you feel that might help you, like what you were talking about with Joy TV, it kind of checking in on you. There's different ones even from Alexa. You can set up reminders for the parents. There's different things you can do to kind of help alleviate kind of the concern. But other than being there with them 24 hours a day, you have to let them live their life and sometimes make wrong decisions, if they're still cognitively okay.
Absolutely. They don't become children just because they become older. I don't
No.
want to be treated like a child. And yesterday, my doctor said to me, "At your age," I said, "No, no, no, don't say that. Not my age. Don't say that." But I think that, yeah, that those are things that we have to think about and opportunities we have also as family members to come together and learn. We certainly have learned, haven't we, in the last 2 years together, you and I, that we've known each other. We've certainly learned that it's a whole lot more than age, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's kind of, it's your health. And that's why with senior centers, they're doing different, exercise classes. Personal trainers are specializing in aging population. Because if you strengthen yourself, you are going to be better physically fit at home. And you want to avoid getting injured at home, especially falling. So as a senior, it's actually really important, to start exercising and keeping strong, because you'll stay independent. If that is the only reason why you get up and walk, a couple of miles a day or go to the gym, stay independent as long as possible.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's not always so much falling, it's how to get up from a fall if it does happen,
That
right? And
too.
be strong enough to do that. Patty, it has been a pleasure having you with us today. I love these conversations, and you're so up to date on things, and you're so knowledgeable, and keep yourself involved and always learning new things. And we appreciate that so much. If you could give one piece of advice to every adult child visiting aging parents over the holidays, what would that be?
I think it would just literally be kind of going back to that observation, of love. Just, have grace in your heart for your parent. They are a human being. They're not your parent. It's like they are a human being too. And so just to afford them all the courtesies of being who they are. And, don't make assumptions, like you said, basing on age, that, oh, they didn't remember to put the butter in or whatever. Oh my gosh, they've got dementia. So just they're humans, and just to really look at them as that. But if you feel you need to start doing some observations, then get others involved too. But just do everything with, like before, a sense of curiosity and love. No condemnation.
Beautifully said. Thank you very, very
All
much.
right.
We wish all of our listeners and our viewers wonderful, happy holidays and wonderful Christmas season with their families and their loved ones. We thank you for listening. Come back next week to Always Ageless, where we are abundant resources, lots of resources for you in anything that has to do with aging, growing older, and living your best life at any age. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you, Patty.
All right. Thank you very much.